All right, Kristen, we're going to start with you. Okay, you're at the NFL Network. You, as you mentioned, you served as a marketing manager at ESPN. With somebody who wants to get into sports marketing, and we're talking more in the media element of it, which way or which path can they take to kind of do what you do? And explain a little bit of some of the things you do when we talk about marketing. It's not just the NFL Network, but some of the things that come with it. Any part of it you want to, but the marketing, actually pushing the brand, you know, kind of the things that you or some of these folks may want to do if they're pursuing a marketing do to push the brand of maybe the media element.
Yeah, I can speak to that easily. I think a misconception is that, yes, I am, and as Steve is an NFL employee, but we work for the media group, and so there are nuances to that that differ from the NFL, the Shield, versus media and how we push out our content and via digital, via linear TV, or on mobile devices, all types of different platforms. But what's important for us in the media group, and me specifically, is to leverage our affiliate partnerships with Time Warner, with Dish, with DirecTV, Comcast, whoever, and get the message in front of the consumers. And so without the affiliates without them being there to use as a vehicle, you all don't see NFL Network programming. You don't know Steve is hosting this show. You don't know he's an analyst. You don't know Marshall Faulk has said something outrageous. You don't know Michael Irvin has jumped on the desk, because you don't see it unless you're seeing it through one of our partners. And so the relationship there, really, in any network, the affiliate relationship is the lifeblood of that network. And so those relationships are the most important, most valuable to a network, and using them to get the marketing messages across to Hispanics, to women, to children, whomever we're targeting, is vital to our success.
And Jay, do you work behind the scenes in some of the production editing elements with the Lakers? It's sports broadcasting, or with Spectrum Sports. It's sports broadcasting, but kind of jumping off where she went, getting the word out, getting the specific. Okay, here's Lakers highlights you want to get out. Take us through some of what you do to make sure the message gets out, be it through the Lakers, through what Spectrum is trying to do through its sports arm, and how you go about that on a daily basis to make sure people see the product.
Right. So much like an NFL network, while we are not directly run by the NFL, we are a team partner of the Lakers. And one of the great things that we get by being a team partner is that they will use us as the funneling arm for information. So most recently, when the situation went down when Magic Johnson was hired, the first place that came was to us. And so a lot of what we do is that it's a long stream process of the Lakers, for instance, will have a press release that Magic Johnson is hired. And then from there, from top to bottom, the coordinating producers, the associate producers, the show producers, the editors, it becomes this sort of mobilization that happens. And so they have an idea like, look, we need to make sure we tell the fans that Magic Johnson is hired. So the first thing that we do is that we'll get some of the content, be it pictures of Magic Johnson with the Bus family, videos that we've had, old video of Magic Johnson invoking that Lakers spirit. And so we'll show the baby skyhook. We'll show the big hug with Kareem, because we, quite frankly, want to put out there that this is a positive thing, not only for the Laker organization, but that we need the fans to buy into it as well. So one of the things as the media team partner of these teams, be it the Dodgers, the Sparks, the Galaxy, or the Lakers, is that we need to work very closely with these teams. And those partnerships that we have with these teams are very valuable. And so we're not necessarily in the tabloid business. So if something were to happen, outside of the realm of sports, we stay away from it because we're trying to help the team out. Now, that does create a little bit of confusion of, are you an entertainment company? Are you a news company? But we feel, at least out of the network and everybody, we all understand that our main goal is to help the team. And by helping the team, we can make sure that the fans get the information. And then, quite frankly, like I was saying, it has to be a level of entertainment. And so we have different shows that we will do. So one of the shows we have is called Lake Show. And so that is a very social media fan-driven show. So we have the fans have an opportunity to chime in. And then our analysts, be it James Worthy or Robert Ory or our host, will then talk to the fans. And so now you have a connection not only with the team through watching, but you have this opportunity to interact with people who have had chances to interact with Magic Johnson, who James Worthy and Magic played together. And so they can present a unique perspective that you're not going to see on ESPN, quite frankly, because they don't necessarily have the pool of people that we had. So I think it's really great the fact that we can merge what the team is trying to do, what we're trying to do as a network, and also to serve the fans and what they want to see entertainment-wise.
Yeah, real target audience specific, so
Exactly.
really good description. Jennifer, I'm fascinated. You working overseas, a couple components to that. Let's start it off. Were you met with any resistance when you were over in Singapore, when you're trying to get your message across, where people kind of like, you're not from here, you really don't need to tell us what you want us to do?
On my first day of work, my boss, who I love and adore, sat me down in a private room and looked at me and said, "You're American, you're coming in here to talk about sport. And I'm going to tell you right now, some people are not going to want to hear what you say. So I'm telling you this to prepare to how to build these relationships, to sit back, to gather the information of what they're saying to you and develop." And I really developed a kind of an Eastern mindset of how Singapore is structured, completely different than our sports structure in America and how we're structured. And working with my colleagues to find out what was going to be best, because I didn't want to impose and say, this is, we've seen this in America, we win X amount of medals at the Olympics, and this is how it's going to be. That's not going to work for a smaller country like that. But I really appreciate my colleague, my boss, as a Singaporean, taking the time aside and saying, we are going to have these differences, but let's talk through it.
And what was the acceptance? I mean, did you ever break through the wall completely?
Yeah, you know what? At my going away party when I left 5 years ago, I invited all my different colleagues and individuals, and I was very touched that friends who culturally would not go to a restaurant that I had invited them to because of beliefs or different backgrounds, they were all there to support me, and they still keep in touch. They are really, my brothers and sisters and my Singapore family. I have pictures of them still in my office, and it helped me grow more as a person to be challenged in that way.
And when you came back to the United States, how did that experience now? How did you bring that with you to do your job with the Yankees, so to speak?
Well, I looked at my team when I got in LA, and I said, I'm going to probably say some random words that you're not going to understand. Some Malay words here, some Mandarin words, so please call me out on it. But I just would rather embrace it and say, look, this is kind of where I've been, and let's work through it together. And so it's added a different perspective, and I guess just openness and trying to understand and figure out what both sides of the story are.
Great. Okay, Johnathan, we're going to pass it down to you. Johnathan, by the way, was very humble on his introduction. He was a really good football player at UCLA. I mean, he was one of the best running backs in the country, which he failed to mention. And Johnathan came on our show right before he got drafted by the Packers. And so it was really good bumping into him again. I just kind of want to, for folks in this area, we're talking about maybe bringing things to the Inglewood area, to the South Central area, View Park, Baldwin Hills, this businesses, getting a seat at the table. Going to Dorsey, it's not that long ago, but growing up in that area and now working for the Rams, doing community outreach, what type of experiences growing up, or even when you're at UCLA that are applicable now that you're back working for a football team, trying to gain support in this market?
Absolutely. For me, it's such a blessing to be where I am now, and not just because I've obtained a piece of success, but to show the people in the inner city or even throughout Los Angeles that it is possible to dream if we have a why, that you can accomplish your vision if you create one and have one. And to being involved in the Los Angeles Rams and the community outreach part, it's very important for us to just be inclusive with what we do in different demographics, regardless of what it might be, regardless of what your program is, regardless of where you are in a city. We just want to be a resource. If that is financially, if that is sending a player out, just to show that there is hope and we all can obtain success within our organization and just as we are as individuals, and to grow up in the inner city and to go to UCLA and to be in those different demographics, it definitely has broadened my knowledge, with being able to have the conversations with certain people, to bring it back to my organization, but also to get in front of different audience and understand them and meet them where they're at, so we could really grow and not be limited. We could touch everyone. It's about our reach, and it's about, as I mentioned, being inclusive with every neighborhood, with every city, with every problem, with every issue. We truly want to give hope and maintain hope. Super Bowl is a priority, but the community and the city and uniting the city is also a number one priority, and that's why we're truly here. And to be in LA and grow up in it is also to understand the different pockets of it.
Quickly, we know there's another team coming to LA. Do you sense, I'm not going to mention them because you're representing your team here, but what about kind of cornering? I mean, there's going to be a battle for community outreach. What about the Rams kind of cornering as much of the market as they can?
Absolutely. I don't know who that other team is you're talking about, but we'll make something up for tonight. As I mentioned, we want to win games, but at the end of the day, it's about growing the game of football, and it's about being a resource. And the Chargers and the LA Rams are going to collaborate in certain programs to do that. There's 5,000 nonprofits in Los Angeles. And although the LA Rams will love to help every one of them, we understand realistically the Chargers and us will have to work together to make that happen. And as long as we could be this resource, and I'm going to keep saying that because that's what we are, we're not just a football team, as long as we could be a resource and attack these issues and progress, I think we're moving in the right direction. It's really just to be accessible as much as we can, and the Chargers are definitely on the same page, and we share that vision of making a difference.
All right, Jaia, am I saying that right?
No, Jaia.
Okay, I'm sorry for not listening.
I'm used to it.
My apologies, I'm sorry. Sports attorney. This is when you hear a lot of young people come up, I want to be a sports attorney. And as you can hopefully tell them now, that's a pretty broad brush because there's so many avenues that they can take. But in getting a law degree, how do you kind of not only get into sports and work as an attorney, but some of the specific things that you do that maybe you can share with them that kind of correlate between the law world and the sports world?
Sure. So funny enough, I actually did not go to law school to be a sports or entertainment lawyer. I went to be a civil rights lawyer and help my people. And then I changed course my second year of law school once I got an internship working in sports and entertainment. So it is definitely a broad field, but are there any attorneys or law students? Okay,
some hands raised.
Awesome, okay.
All right.
So this is for you. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in sports and entertainment, I definitely recommend taking key courses while you're in school, and not just a typical sports law class or entertainment law class. There are a lot of other tools that are needed to practice sports law, such as contract drafting, such as knowing how to register a trademark with the trademark office, how to register copyrights, how to negotiate. So, if being a sports lawyer is what you are interested in becoming, I would look at it outside the scope of just, sports law and think about all the other skill sets that are really needed to be an effective sports attorney. And I have a lot of friends who didn't become a sports lawyer until maybe 5 years, 10 years after they had already graduated from law school. So, it's not necessarily something that you have to start right after law school. You can always change course later on if that's an area that you do want to get into. But if it is, I would definitely recommend, having a mentor, doing your homework, and just becoming really knowledgeable about the area of sports, whatever area that is. And as you mentioned, it's a very broad area. So I would recommend finding kind of your specialty, your niche. Mine is intellectual property, and endorsement sponsorship deals. But I have some colleagues who just represent race car drivers or just represent baseball players. So if that's an area that you're thinking about getting into, I would definitely recommend kind of finding your specialty and niche.
And quickly, if you could explain to them intellectual properties and some of those deals, because there's a lot of athletes making a lot more money in that realm than the salary they get paid for playing the sport.
Definitely. So there are two areas of intellectual property that really affect professional athletes. The first is copyright law. The second is trademark law. Trademarks protect logos, brand names, slogans. So a lot of professional athletes, they have nicknames, RG3. That's a registered trademark with the trademark office. So a lot of professional athletes, as they come up with these kind of logos for themselves or nicknames for themselves, they register it with the trademark office to prevent third parties from making a profit off of these names, off of these slogans, and a lot of them do make a lot of money by registering and protecting their trademarks. Copyright law is protecting ideas. So a lot of professional athletes have ideas for, maybe television shows or films, and they register those works with the Copyright Office. And once again, that's a huge cash cow for a lot of professional athletes who end up getting into entertainment.
So see, sports law is not just criminal lawyers doing perp walks with guys in and out of court. All right, Arielle, you work at BDA Sports Agency, and Bill Duffy, the founder, is one of the premier agents, mainly for NBA players.
We only do NBA now. He used to do NFL.
Okay.
Sorry, I should hold this up to my mouth.
That's all right. So NBA now. You got your degree, it says here, in MBA, in sports
Yes.
marketing. Working at an agency like this, how does that kind of play into pushing more opportunities like Jaia was just describing for your players, or off-court things like that?
So I got my degree in sports management from Cal State Long Beach, and I saw this question on the piece of paper and I got a little bit flustered with it because my management degree is something that I think about not always in the most positive way. And the reason being that, and I'm sure this ladies will talk about some gender issue later, but I was having difficulty after I had a really long career in sports finding jobs. And so I wanted to differentiate myself. So I got this management degree where I thought that it would ultimately make me look different from other candidates, when in reality, it wasn't my time for me to sort of move on. Because even after I got this degree, I still got stuck in situations where someone's friend's boy was hired next to me to do the same job and didn't do anything and got paid more than me because he was a dude. So ultimately, I love the connections and networking that I made with that management degree, but the content was not something that I don't think I knew already.
Keep that mic in your hand and keep it warm, because we're going to come down here and get you to kind of explain, Jay, at UCLA, because we're going to circle back to some of these diversity issues. I'm sorry just to kind of cut you off.
No,
I
it's fine.
really want to address this for this audience right here, especially some things that they're going to hit. But Jay, folks looking at UCLA, when you're trying to select or groom students into certain roles with sports, how do you go about that? Or do the students kind of come to you and say, hey, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z? Do you ever say, okay, yeah, that's a good thing for you? I mean, how does that kind of work?
So that's a great question. So how many of you have ever played sports? How many of you have some passion about sports? Great. As you can see, I was really a big bodybuilding type of person. Anyway, my story is a little bit different because I work at a business school. Obviously, it's a graduate school, so the students that we work with primarily are folks who have already gotten undergraduate degrees in various fields. One of the things that we should come back to with respect to this question of diversity and opportunity and so on is the fact that certain kinds of professional training don't necessarily have cachet within a sports organization, right? Or even in an agency. The kind of economics of sports has exploded, and there are tons of opportunities to add value if you have legal training, business training, technical training, right? If you're a software engineer, one of the biggest companies over the last couple of years to come out in the sports space is M.E.M.E.S, right? Baseball's Advanced Media Group. They handle all the kind of mobile and digital stuff that allows you to access games, stats, commentary via your mobile phone, right? So there are a lot of different backgrounds that can help. The challenge is, though, within certain organizations, how do you actually break in? And unfortunately, whether it's at the undergraduate level or at the graduate level, these are not organizations that typically come to a college campus and then have a standard kind of recruiting hustle, right? So for those of you who actually tried to get a job while you were in college, I was trying to do other stuff, but you may have remembered that there were companies that would come to campus, hang out a shingle, do on-campus interviews, have a set number of jobs for internships, have a set number of jobs for full-time opportunities. That's not what it's like in the sports space, right? So part of it is, A, helping make sure that folks have the training. So luckily at UCLA, at the business school, my center also has faculty members who have worked in the space. So Jeff Morad, who owned the Padres and now has an agency, Peter Guber, who's a huge luminary in the entertainment space, Harry Sloan. So these folks actually either teach or co-teach classes, which is a great way to bring people into the classroom. We had Alex Rodriguez come to Jeff's class just a few weeks ago. So that's one avenue, is to open up those opportunities to get, our students to meet folks. There are student clubs. And so by leveraging groups of students who are focused on things, we can then create experiences, whether it's days on the job where folks can go and visit Fox Sports or Spectrum Sports, or visit an agency, or talk to a franchise. And we can hopefully also be able to do experiential learning opportunities where we can have case competitions. In fact, we have one that we partner with Villanova on. So we have some students that will be going to Philly in a couple of weeks to essentially solve a sports business problem in combination with the law school, actually. So each team has to have both folks from the business school and the law school. So there are a lot of different ways that you can become much more prepared to basically understand the industry, the space, the players. But realistically speaking, if you want to break into the sports industry on the business side, you have to have a certain amount of entrepreneurial hustle behind you and a certain amount of critical thinking and creative thinking, because there are real roadblocks to kind of finding just a simple, well-worn path in the industry, because folks will hire their cousin's friend and the former player's son and so on, right? So you have to be thinking carefully about how you can leverage a university education or your own relationships to find the opportunities that are going to work for you.
How do you, with the technology just constantly evolving, because now the big thing also we're going to start seeing is the virtual reality of sports, and Jada, you see this too, where highlights now are going to be coming on those devices, things. How do you maybe steer people? Hey, look, don't just think about teams or organizations or Nike. Think about ping golf or some of the technical elements, and try to get students or people, even young people here, to expand. Again, because everything you guys do on your phones, whatever, can all be tied into sports.
So that's a great question. I mean, one of the things that got me excited about coming here today is that I've met at least half a dozen people who want to leverage the arrival of the Rams as a way to build accelerators for new ventures, new corporate office space, co-working spaces and so forth, so that we can launch new companies, sometimes related to sports, sometimes not. And when I look at the space, so one of the things I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years is building relationships with the startup community in Southern California, which is robust. And when I talk to folks who are interested in media, sports, and entertainment, it's clear to me that there are a ton of business opportunities, specifically for folks who are thinking more about how the experience is changing for the consumer, and where new platforms or new ways to distribute the content or new licensing opportunities, et cetera, create new business opportunities for the traditional players, right? So how can you help leverage a new opportunity to kind of create a new pile of cash, right? Sometimes that's going to be, for example, here's my little secret wish. I wish somebody would let me be the licensor for the rugby team in New Zealand, right here in Inglewood, right? Because the rugby team in New Zealand is called the All Blacks.
The All Blacks.
So I think I can sell a few T-shirts right here, right? If I can get the hookup. So if somebody knows, let me know. But you got to be thinking about the opportunities, whether it's tech, VR certainly, but in-stadium technology, which you'll see when this new stadium is built, so that you have a much more robust mobile experience and you can shoot instant replays to somebody's phone, or make it so that they can more easily access concessions without leaving their seats, right? Thinking about applications that connect fans to each other and potentially create value in that way. How do you get in the conversation? How do you get into the larger economic ecosystem? Think about those opportunities.
A very good conversation. And Arielle,
Can I interject for one quick second?
Absolutely.
Because I have a great point that matches sort of what he was saying for the people in the audience that aren't techies. I don't think, I go back and talk to schools and to graduate programs and undergraduate programs about getting to sports, and one of the things that I tell people is please don't list all the professional sports as the only places that you're going to go. At the end of the day, there's a million ways for you to be involved in sports that have nothing to do with teams or operation environments, and I'm going to give 2 great examples. I have done deals with 2 companies. One's called Rostaclot. It is a guy from Kenya who made bracelets out of shoelaces, and now he is trademarked in the NBA, and he has an on-court apparel with these bracelets that can be worn on court. And so he had to have somebody work for him who knew NBA licensing and trademarking that could essentially revolutionize his bracelet brand. I know another brand that is the official watch partner for team stores for all the MLB, NBA, and NFL, and I think hockey now too. They're called Modify Watches, based in San Francisco. I've been to the studio. It's a room a third of the side of the stage, and it's all people probably younger than me that work all day long, and they have all these NBA licensing deals and all these other professional deals as a merchandise brand that's not a Nike and not an Adidas. So when you're thinking about working in sports, do not limit yourself to places where you feel you should be, or everybody's going, or this is gonna be really cool if I go here. Like if you're not into tech, don't do tech. Like maybe you really like apparel, maybe you really like accessories, and you find out these smaller companies. Maybe you can be that person that revolutionizes a brand. So just be really broad in your mindset, and when it comes to opportunity, and then hone in on your interests after the fact.
That is absolutely fantastic advice. Questions? Anybody? Because there's some good stuff right here. I'll repeat the question.
It's really hard to see anybody.
Anyway, my name is Jon-Devin. I moved to LA about a year ago. I work in sports and entertainment PR. And while I would love for everyone to answer this question, if it jumps out to you, feel free to answer it. But I'm fairly early, or starting out in my career, so my question would be, what choices did you guys make early in your career that you feel like really got you to the point where you are now?
Did everyone hear that? She asked, what choices did all of us make that got us to where we are right now? And quickly, her dad is going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Kenny Easley is going to the 2017 Pro Football Hall of Fame. Canton, Ohio. I'm sorry, I just had to. I know, and you're a Howard graduate like me, so I got to show you love. Okay. All right, so there we go. Anybody want to start this?
I got a quick one just because I have the microphone, I have the power. I wish I actually learned this earlier. It's really hard to see people with the light. Be yourself and have integrity. For the love of God, do not sacrifice who you are for a job or a person or a position, because at the end of the day, if somebody hires you for the false you're going to have to either be miserable the rest of your life being that false person, or somehow you're going to come out being the real you, and then they're not going to like you anyways. Like ultimately, you have to find a job and go work for a place that wants you for you. And if that means that you go to 10 job interviews, they all turn you down, but the 11th one takes you, just be patient.
I would say, and something that I wish also that I learned earlier, is that one thing that especially when I first got to where I was trying to be like the rock star. Like I was trying to be like the guy. And then I realized that like 15 years ago, my supervisor was also trying to be the guy, but he's worked his way up to being my supervisor. So one thing that I will say, and we can be absolutely frank, some people call it selling out. I call it selling up. You got to make sure that you make the person who gave you that opportunity look like the rock star, and then one day you will be in a position to then give somebody else that opportunity. So one thing, it's like check your pride at the door, because that's literally, and I'll be quite honest, that almost got me fired because I was just trying to be the man, and then I realized it's like, you know what, it's better to work than not work and be the man. So I'll fall back, I'll make my supervisor look great, and in the course of 4 years, I've been promoted from a production assistant to where I am now because I've made my boss look like the rock star.
I completely agree with what both of you said, but for me, it's take calculated risks. The U.S. Olympic Committee asked me to come down and volunteer as a translator in 2003 for the Pan American Games. I wasn't going to get paid. I had just graduated from college, and I went down, and that was the catalyst for the rest of my career in Colorado. As well as I really wanted to work the Olympic Games. I quit a very steady job, and I went up to Vancouver for 4 months to work there, not knowing what was going to happen. I started in Singapore for a 4-month contract and ended up staying for 5 years. Sometimes you have to push out of that comfort zone to get where you're going to go.
And I'm actually going to echo her comment and say take uncalculated risks as well. That's what I did when I moved to LA. When I moved here from New York, I quit my job at a big firm. I didn't know one person out here in Los Angeles. I got an apartment off Craigslist, hoping that it was actually going to look like what it said it looked like on Craigslist. And luckily it did. I didn't have a car when I moved here because I moved from New York. And it all worked out. I made cold calls, I met a lot of people, but I don't know if I do that now, but in my 20s, I think it's great, and I would highly recommend taking uncalculated risks as well because they will pay off.
I thought she said not everyone answered.
Well, we're passing the mic now. We get some hot takes here. This is good stuff.
Okay. What was the question again? Advice?
What did you?
What choices did you make early in your career that you feel like got you to the point where you're at now?
So that's very specific to career, and I would say I probably made all the wrong choices as far as a career goes, and then mostly wrong ones personally too. But so here's the thing, you can make all the wrong choices and still end up on a stage like this with people like this. Like, I don't know how I got here. So I think the best point is to take the uncalculated risk. Because if you feel it, no matter if everyone disagrees with you, calls you crazy, whatever it is, that's the risk you want to take. Yeah. You don't want everyone saying yes to you all the time, like, that's a great decision. That means you're either conforming or you're going in a direction that's safe. And so I don't play those games. So if I get too many yeses in a room, I'm like, let me reevaluate my thought. And for me, what I'll say to this as far as people being young and getting into work, really the only thing you have to do is have a strong work ethic and be honest to yourself and not worry about the money, don't worry about the title, don't worry about the league, the agency, the media. Just do what moves you, and you'll end up wherever it is that you want to end up. And I mean, I can almost promise you that sincerely, and that's the only reason I have the job I have is because I took a risk, and I started over at ESPN, but as a project manager, and I had been a senior manager for a number of years, and I knew I wanted to be at ESPN, and I didn't care how I got in there. So I don't care if you're at the mailroom, you're an assistant, you're a PA, and you've been a president, and you want to be there, just go, because it all work itself out.
Jonathan?
Right, I'm gonna tell a story, is that all right? That okay? So, obviously, as Steve mentioned, I played in the NFL, so my dream was to be a professional athlete, and I thought I was gonna be in the NFL for a long time, I tell you that. And quick story, so it started off where my dream came to reality. We were playing the Minnesota Vikings. First game, it was the 14th game of the season, first quarter, first play. I'm back at kick return. Pretty much the ball is kicked, and I catch it, run to the 5, the 10, 15. I get hit right on the top of my helmet. The ball comes out. I look to the left. It was a fumble to go get the ball, and I'm completely paralyzed from my neck down from a spinal contusion. I completely ended my career from football. That was the last game I played. And unfortunately, I didn't know what was next for me. But as I've been learning over the years, the most important thing that I had was my story. And what I mean by my story is throughout my playing career, it was always the little things that mattered. If it was speaking, if it was being involved, if it was volunteering, if it was understanding that sports wasn't everything. And although my mind wasn't there, my actions was there. If it's understanding what happened in media, if it's understanding what's going on in the community, if it was understanding what's happening in the business department, whereas not necessarily I had to reach out, but people was reaching out to me for the story that I had prior to me retiring from the NFL. So what I tell all of you all from that story, understand what is your brand. It's definitely important, knowing people, but what are people saying about you? When you walk away from tonight, after speaking to the person next to you, what are they going to say to their friends about you? What do you have to offer? How can they see you in their department, in their organization? And because of the charisma, or it's because of I was wanting to be so versatile, I wanted to be seen as more than just a football player, is opened so many doors for me. And I say that very humbly, but my story has got me to where I am right now and the choices that I made and the little things. So take care of the little things and the big things will be all right.
Good? You're abstaining? Okay. I will tell a little bit about mine because it's going to segue into the next conversation that we're going to have about diversity in the workplace. First decision I made was I'm not going to be outworked. My first job, I got hired in Richmond, Virginia, covering high school sports. I was told on the interview I was the minority hire. So I knew going in that the deck was stacked. And sure, I made my mistakes, but I treated everybody a certain way, and I out-hustled everyone. I outworked everyone. I wasn't from Richmond. I grew up in St. Louis, but I learned everything I could about the high school sports. I talked to everybody I could. Guys I covered ended up playing in the NFL. But the main thing, when I have people coming up or folks from Howard saying, hey, we got this young kid coming up, can you get him to the NFL Network? No. No, I'm going to say no, because you have to put, ESPN, NFL Network, BDA Sport, it looks great, but you have got to work at it, and you have to be good at it. I mean, in preparation, as you all hear athletes say, preparation is the key to success. You can't come in any place thinking that just because you have what you think is your brand or you think is your hustle, that you're going to get over. Because unless you're cutting the checks, as you said, you've got to play the game to a certain degree, but then the game can be played by being better. And you're going to have people get promoted above you because of their gender, because of their allegiances, because of their bloodlines. Suck it up, make something of yourself, and go work someplace else. Tina Marie, one of my favorite artists, always has a song called Irons in the Fire. If you all don't know what that means always have something else ready to leverage and use that leverage if you can. Now I'm going to transition to the diversity angle because it's very important. I'm going to spill a little secret here. Kristen and I work for a media agency where if you turn on the NFL Network, you're going to see a whole bunch of black former players on TV talking about football, okay? You turn on Fox or CBS on game day, you're going to see a whole lot of black players on the field, some black coaches. The people calling the shots at that network don't look like me or you or you. Decisions are made by people who don't necessarily look like the folks who are giving you the story, okay? So when it comes to, and I especially want to, and Chris, I want to start with you because, and Jaia, black and female, trying to crack into certain industries, how tough is it, and what are some of the things, because Kristen also works on a big diversity project at NFL Media to get people to take notice and then to get people to take action. And you know, we've worked on a big project to get this happen.
Yes. So how tough is it?
And what are
That's
some
the
of the,
question.
what are some of the things you've had to go through? Because we're still going through them. You guys are going to have to go through them.
Yeah, today's a good day for that question.
Oh man.
How it's tough. Can we curse in here?
This is cable. This is cable.
Yes? No? It's fucking tough. God. It's, but it's not anything that we can't withstand. I think that people of color are just built for tough. And so we can do whatever we have to do to get to wherever we want to be.
Example without giving away too many secrets, please.
An example? Here's an example. So what Steve's referencing, this project that I lured him into, because he's such a fantastic host, is what is called the NFL Diverse Talent Community. And this is a platform that I launched during Super Bowl 50 along with a team, a cross-departmental team. And what it essentially is an online community and platform to obtain diverse talent so the NFL and our clubs can recruit talent and have a pool of women, young people, disabled people, LGBTQ community members, all types of things. And this platform speaks to that individual, that community, that group specifically. And a challenge with that is the league is very conservative. And so while we appreciate, we, not me, we as a proverbial we, appreciate diversity and we think it's important and we put that message out there, there is very little action that's actually taking place to see significant change. And this platform is still not getting the shine that it should or the awareness from a public sense because it's very direct and in your face. And maybe that's me, just direct and in your face. So all of my work is that way. But it's important to the league and for other organizations to actively recruit diverse talent so we can look more like the field. And the field is pretty, the field isn't diverse. The field is African-American predominantly. So I think we need to do a lot of work. And when you're speaking about us targeting Hispanics or Latinos in the market, I think in international people, we have to get international players. We have to get people to diversify the field also. And I don't know if that's something that's on the club radar or not, but it definitely should be. So that's a challenge, but I think the work is important enough for me to take on those fights, to push forward a platform that may not have total buy-in across the board. And that's it.
And Jaia, you is in the legal field. We know that's adding to the sports element, the contract element, getting people to say, this is someone who should be taken seriously. I mean, how tough is it? Explain to them what maybe some of the things you have to go through and where you have to try to maybe break through some of the glass ceilings that are there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. I mean, the number of black women who are sports attorneys is probably 0.01%. Most professional athletes, especially in the NFL and the NBA, they're black. They look like me. But their agents are white, their managers are white, their lawyers are white. Most of the other lawyers I work with on behalf of professional athletes work at firms named Klekowski and Weinstein. They don't look like me. And it's tough, and I struggle with this a lot because I personally don't understand why more professional athletes don't have representation that looks like them. And I ask them sometimes, why don't you have at least one person of color on your team? Because I think there are certain situations where I'm going to understand another black person, if I can be candid, in a way that maybe some other people can't. So it's still a struggle. And for all of you interested in getting into sports, whether it's on the management side, agent side, or lawyer side, I highly, highly recommend it because we have such a long way to go in terms of being behind the scenes and representing these athletes. But it's tough. And for all of you, I would just highly, highly encourage you to push forward and go for it.
Guys, we'll get to you in a second because I want to hear some of the things maybe you have to deal with. I mean, is there more, because you're not dealing necessarily with, let's say, Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA, do you feel that you're more accepted in doing things with the Special Olympics and some of the international games? Because outside of the United States, women's sports are far more lucrative. There seems to be a far greater acceptance. But in terms of management and people you have to deal with, is that the case?
Well, first of all, I'll say at Special Olympics, Southern California, I'm very lucky. Our senior leadership, all are women except for our CEO. So it's quite impressive, and you have a lot of mentors and individuals around you. However, internationally, I think all of our chiefs of department, with the exception of one, were men and mainly had military background, and you definitely did feel that difference. What I felt, especially when I first got into the industry, I showed up wearing heels and a dress to work one day to do typical office work. My male colleague, a couple years older than me, not much, said, we don't dress like that here, and not to actually wear that to an event. You won't be able to move things around. And I was shocked that people, really do look at what we wear and judge us on how we're going to do our job based on that. And I hadn't even been to my first event with them yet. So I think there's a lot of disparity in that way. And then similar to what you said earlier, I found out that a colleague of mine doing the exact same job at a previous position was being paid around $20,000 more a year than me.
And guys, the salary inequity is a real thing. I mean, this is not; these aren't just people talking about it. This is a real thing. And you started this. You brought this up.
Sorry.
That's good. Yeah. This is very good. Is there? How do we bridge this? How do we get there?
So and I hate saying this because I'm such an independent female, but at the end of the day, so I obviously have privilege more than some of you here. I am a white female. So I've already got a little bit of a leg up, but I'm still feel like, you know, I can't imagine what it would be to be in a position where you are, you know, an ethnic minority, but then you're also a gender minority or have some other thing like a disability, or if you're, you know, in the gay community. Unfortunately, I think that at the end of the day, right now, and I hate to have to say this, people of privilege in race or people of privilege in gender, so white men, I can only sort of be as successful as they'll allow me to be. So, I mean, I worked for basketball operations for the Sacramento Kings for 2 years, and I was one of 3 females. I was the only female in a job that was normally held by a male. And the days were mostly miserable, and it was really because the men that were around me couldn't handle the fact that I was sitting at the table with them, to the point where I didn't get invited to lunches. I was the only one. My supervisor liked to bring up plenty of times that things that were different weren't because of gender issues, which was such a crock of shit. And it's, you know, an unfortunate situation right now in 2017 that I will have to sometimes rely on someone else to say she's actually a great person and she does a good job and she works really hard, to make someone be like, okay, I guess she works really hard, even if I'm working my ass off every single day.
Do you think you could branch out and start your own agency?
Well, one of the reasons why I left the Kings when I went to BDA is because half of the employees at BDA are female. The diversity ethnically on the agency is incredible. Bill Duffy, who is the namesake, is an African-American male who's been one of the most successful basketball agents to the state, and he does an excellent job of promoting diversity. My VP of Player Services, she's African-American. I think the group of girls that we have are all different and diverse in so many different ways. So part of the appeal that made me leave was the fact that I saw diversity, which meant that I knew I was going to a group where people got it and I didn't have to explain it to people. Like, they understood that multiple personalities, multiple people, multiple individuals from different backgrounds bring so many different experiences, and that should be valued.
Jay, you're in academia, and it's hard to find agencies or employers like that. I mean, it is, you know, again, as a non-NFL player, I think between myself, Jim Trotter at ESPN, and Josina Anderson at ESPN, we are the only 3 black non-former players talking football at any network. Fox, CBS, ABC. That's not because we're genetically predisposed or some way. That's just because the people doing the hiring view the former players who look a certain way differently. I mean, are there any you always see these insiders breaking inside news stories. I've never seen a Major League Baseball insider who isn't Anglo, or college basketball.
Fran Charles.
Okay, well, Fran's a host on Major League Baseball. Fran used to work with us at NFL Network. Okay, so a good point for Major. But I'm saying the insiders, the reporters. In academia, as someone who teaches and maybe is trying to move up that ladder, but also you're trying to pull up, how do you handle young people? How do you prepare them for this while you're also maybe trying to do some things with your own career?
Right. So first, I'm just going to take a beat, because when I think about some of the things that women deal with in the workplace, it breaks my heart, right? I think the same way Arielle was talking about, well, I have a leg up because I'm white. I have a leg up because I'm male. And, there are these moments in meetings or in other situations where it's clear that women aren't being listened to because they're women, right? Or women's initiatives aren't being supported because it doesn't occur to folks that those initiatives have value. And some of these things happen and they're not even conscious decisions, but it goes to the culture, and it goes to the fact that what we think of as normal often leaves groups of people out, right? And I appreciate the reminder, but it's just a little painful to hear about sometimes, Now, with respect to, some of the things that we do, can do, et cetera, what I do personally, we do have at Anderson, we do run a summer institute for high school students and for undergraduate students who are interested in the media, entertainment, and sports industries, which gives all students a chance to get a taste when they're a little bit earlier thinking about their careers. And it also gives me a chance, and some of the other folks that are in my network, a chance to build personal connections and maybe pull somebody aside. I've been lucky enough to also work with some folks who are thinking very carefully about, how do we make sure that our athletes don't go broke after they're done playing, which also creates an opportunity to build bridges. And personally, there's always, I try to take advantage of the opportunities to go out into the community and talk to young people about the other things they can be doing while they're preparing for that glamorous career in sports. I would say that with respect to mentoring, because I've had I've been blessed to be able to mentor some people, and I've certainly been mentored by some great folks, men and women. I would say that for me, I'm the person who tells folks 3 months, 6 months, a year in advance of something, this is exactly what's going to happen, and this is what we should do about it, and gets ignored. And then 9 months later, the thing comes up. Look at this is happening. Maybe we should do X. And it's like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Just feel like I heard it before, right? I'm that dude. And so, what is that like, and how do you kind of impart wisdom to other folks? And I think part of it is, at whatever stage you are in your career, trying to take a moment to genuinely try to help folks around you in your circle. It's kind of an extension of your principle about making your boss look good, making the folks in your circle look good, and helping them see around the corners that they don't see for themselves, and not worrying about what comes back from that, right? You just do it. And eventually when people start to understand what you stand for, but also, the ways in which you can help, that becomes a part of your personal brand too, and you become a little bit more efficient at it. I'm not always great at it, personally, but I do try to kind of help people work their way out of corners and out of situations and help them kind of understand the landscape that they're dealing with. And for me, I think one of the biggest challenges we all wrestle with is seeing opportunity, because we're so busy dealing with the 6 inches in front of our face that we can't really see the landscape around us and be able to deal with that, right? We, the people in this room in particular, you come out of communities and experiences where from a very early age you're told that you need to become independent. And I'm here to tell you that stunted your development. Because if you want to take your game to the next level, you got to be interdependent. You have to start developing a sense of how you can connect with other people to do something greater than what you could do by yourself. And that means being able to recognize when other folks might have your best interest at heart, and being able to understand how you can kind of make up for some of your shortcomings by partnering with other people and sharing in the success, right? Having part of a lot is much better than having 100% of nothing, right?
And quickly, we're actually about to run out of time. This is flying by, but this is fascinating. But JD, have you ever had to be, we're on TV, the moral compass, like, hey guys, you might not want to air that because you're about to offend a whole lot of people?
I'm glad that we got to do this, because I think that there has been a lot of talk about the difficulties of minorities breaking in. But once you are in, you are very valuable to multiple platforms. So you're valuable to your coworkers because, quite frankly, some of my coworkers have never had real conversations about race with anybody outside of their own race. And so you have to be willing to have the hard conversations. I spend more time with my coworkers than I do with my family, and so initially I kind of started messing with, hey guys, that's racist, and like, what do you mean? How is that racist? And so the conversation started happening. And now, to Steve's point, recently the Get Out Challenge was like the big thing that was taking over Instagram. And one of the producers of the social media show wanted to have our 2 non-white analysts do the Get Out Challenge. And I told him that might not be taken so well by the people who actually watch the show. And so you have to take those opportunities, and yes, you are going to have to scratch and claw your way into these positions. But once you are there, make sure you leverage the opportunity to now not only work your tail off and be successful, but to change people's opinions. Because the reason why racism exists not only in business but in this country is because people have negative opinions about the people that they're experiencing. So if you present something and say, I am not this, you are not only having an opportunity to change the workplace, but you're going to change people's lives simply by being around them.
Well said. Well said. Well said. All right, guys, I just looked at the clock. There's a few more things they have planned for you. Let's get a couple questions in if you have them, and then we just got to keep on moving on. This has been fascinating. I'm sure we could sit here all night. Right here in the middle, I see a hand up, and I'll repeat the question. When the question was, for students who maybe went to university that don't have a sports management or a certain type of business type of degree, how can they advance, I guess, their education or get job opportunities in the sports field?
So first of all, I take it you live here in Southern California? Okay, so first order of business is that you have to understand that for whatever reason, this is the Renaissance era in Southern California for folks who are interested in almost any kind of hustle, but particularly if you're interested in entertainment, sports, media, if you're thinking about new ventures in entrepreneurship, et cetera. There are meetups literally every night, right? Someplace in LA. All you need to do is go online and get on the digital LA listserv and the various kind of sports business associations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, you can take advantage of stuff that happens at the university. And by the way, I'm here at UCLA, but I came to UCLA. I'm also an alum of UCLA's business school, but I actually worked at USC in their business school for 8 years. And they've got a ton of great programming and things that go on too. And you can take the train there, right? So definitely take advantage of opportunities on campuses, but understand that there are tons of meetups and professional groups off campus, which you might be able to leverage into projects, right? So not everything, people say it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not who you know, it's who knows you and who knows your work. So if you can get a project, if you can get even an unpaid internship, if it's of a limited duration, but you're actually gonna get mentored and have, some successes to show for it, that's a great way to start. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to make introductions. And I'm sure other folks on this panel would do the same. But just because you didn't major in it, understand not many of the best schools don't have such a major, right? So a lot of folks in the game now didn't come up through some formal academic training, and there are ways to get you on.
All right, guys, I think we're definitely running late. I think if everyone's going to stick around, maybe you can corner one of us for some questions or some of us for some questions. But I know the event organizers want to get this going. Panel, thank you so much. I mean, I'm telling you, we could sit here and talk all night about this stuff. Thank you guys for being attentive and really engaged. We really do appreciate it.
Once again, please give it up for our panelists, everybody up here representing. Absolutely, absolutely. Once again, got to give it up for my brothers in them socks. He rocking them Laker socks right there. He clean, boy. Come up here, boy, with a suit on with the Laker socks on, man. You know he representing sports up here. Listen, before you leave, we have gifts. They come bearing gifts, you know what I'm saying, for everybody up here, just to show our appreciation. People from the Vodka brand, can we have you up here and please present these beautiful people with these gifts that we have up here. Beautiful red bags. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. You gotta love it. Good to see a smile on her face because she was ready to slap somebody. For real. I don't know what kind of day you had, but bless you. Yes, Jesus. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Hello, my name is Crystal Jackson. I own Gallon Limited, the marketing firm that has represented Armand V vodka today. So it's an extremely smooth vodka paired along with Kalikia brandy that is available for you guys outside. And also thank you so much to Black Beverly Hills, a clothing brand based here locally in LA that
has some amazing attire outside, so definitely support all the fellow businesses. Again, thank you for supporting the YPs and coming out. Thank you so much to the panel. You guys did an amazing job and very informative, and I hope you guys enjoy the vodka. They are available online for purchase as well today, which we're giving away free cognac glasses as well. So thank you guys so much again.
Okay, so we're going to move right along. Can I have young brother Sterling come on up here for a second? Give it up once again, y'all, for my co-host, young Sterling in the house, representing. So we're going to keep things moving. All right. Tell them what you got to say, young brother.
Oh, as far as the next part of the...
Yeah, we're going to move on to the next part. Can we move on? Are we done with these beautiful people up here? Okay, you're going to tell me right now.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to get to the Q&A? Are we going to get questions? Or?
Well, if we have one more question, for the people up here, and that will be the end. We're going to keep it brief real quick, and we're going to move right along. This young lady right here.
Hi, I'm Melania Davis, founder and CEO of Gladiator Combine. It's a global sports recruiting startup. Thank you guys so much for your wisdom and wise words and time and all that. Quick question for the broadcasters and the international sports group. How do you see virtual reality playing a role in the future of sports?
Okay, I know a little bit about this. It clearly is something. Can you guys? Okay, it's clearly something everyone from Sony to a lot of other groups are experimenting with. The one stumbling block that they've had initially out of the gate with those devices you see people wearing, with their phones, is you can't share the experience. And we are in an age where we want to tweet, Snapchat, and share how great everything is with everybody else. So while you're sitting there telling them, oh, this highlight, of Todd Gurley running this touchdown against the 49ers is fantastic, unless they're watching the NFL Network, they're not going to probably see that highlight the same way as a lot of people. So I think virtual reality is going to be a part of it, but the big challenge the industry is having is finding ways to share it. But you find a way to share it, and you're going to become very wealthy. I mean, again, trust me, there are millions of people trying to figure that out, but the virtual reality element of everything in any sports entertainment industry is something people are working very, very hard at doing. It's just a sharing element that they've got to get through.
And part of it as well is that the technology is still very new, right? And so you have the thing where, like right now, 4K, right? How did we get 4K? Well, the problem that I deal with an editor is that 4K files are huge. And then trying to stitch those 4K files in such a 360 manner, it's time consuming. And while sports is an appointment business, right now the reason why certain shows are struggling is because people can get that information so fast. And so it's hard to get that much metadata, to get technical, to get that much metadata into an edit bay, stitch it fast together, get it out. If we can then, once we learn how to share it, we have to learn how to edit it to then get it to you. And so I think the technology is there, and as we continue to grow, like one of my projects when I go back to work the next day is to begin to start editing virtual reality 360 footage. And so we're still learning how to get it to people.
All right, yeah, thank you. Round of applause, please. Thank you. So since we all are tech savvy, I see that some people, the audience members have had your phones out. Want to make sure that you guys get a chance to use the Snapchat filter for the Ides of March. And then also we have the Ides of March hashtag, and then also the LAULYP hashtag, and also the LABIC. So make sure you tweet about it, you post about it on Facebook, it's on your Snapchat. If it's not on the Snapchat story, it didn't happen. So you want to be able to brag to your friends that you was here. You saw this wonderful panel, all right?
Once again, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to wrap it up. Please give it up for our people on the panel, y'all, that's representing, doing their thing. Great job.